Tim Gerner, property developer and multimillionaire Tim Gerner, has expressed the view that employees have grown too arrogant and believe that a substantial increase in unemployment, especially in the construction sector, is necessary to boost productivity. Listen to this fucking psycho. Dude, this guy's gonna get me killed. He does not. Here, can you do me a favor, Ian? Put up that this dumbass's views do not reflect mine. Not for YouTube, but just for the
audience,
the communists watching, the radical communists watching.
You guys are not cold. It's like
It's a little
freezing
cold.
here.
Yeah, it's a little cold.
Turn off the air.
I mean, the audacity to go out and say something in public, like this is some insightful thing. I mean, this man is a demon. Listen to this shit. Gerner Group. So change the name. It's Psycho. Gerner Group. Stop.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40-50% in my view.
Nice.
We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance.
Can you imagine actually going out and saying this? I mean, what?
No.
So, you know what I just saw?
What a
This
fuck.
guy is the guy that started the whole avocado toast thing. Same dude.
Hold on.
Which
How do
is
you
what is
claim
that?
Huh?
How do you claim that? That's like claiming burritos.
No. I'm sorry. He didn't say that he invented avocado toast. You remember there was a controversy, the whole meme of like, well, millennials should just stop buying.
Him.
Yeah, he started that whole.
Stop with all the
discourse.
avocado toast. Oh,
Yeah.
he really hates poor people.
This is what I'm saying.
He
Look, here he is.
Oh, wow.
wow.
Yeah,
Hey,
this
wait,
is
full
him.
screen that. Full screen that.
That's crazy.
Oh,
We are coming into a new reality where first home buyers, second home buyers, and a lot of people won't own a house in their lifetime. That is just the reality of where we're going.
So you think that young people have now got the prospect of never owning a home?
Absolutely, when you're spending $40 a day on smashed avocado and coffees and not working. Of course.
Oh, that was it, I guess. Yeah. Spending all your money on smashed avocado.
A day on smashed avocado and coffees and not working. Of course.
dude, you fuck.
Absolutely.
This guy
When I have-
sucks.
He really sucks.
I'm also seeing that he is one of these weirdos that wants to be immortal.
Oh God, that's another dude I haven't talked about. The immortal
Yeah,
Instagram
yeah.
guy. I'm obsessed with him.
This guy, he gets receives magnesium infusion as well-being establishment.
Bro, you literally look like you're doing a demonic ritual. What are you doing? Look at that with all the candles. I hate you. I actually hate you.
I mean, I can say from our experience that he's completely wrong. It's not the case about like productivity going down because of COVID and people not wanting to work and all this stuff. Is wrong.
People just
Well, if your business model is reliant on exploiting workers, then it is going to affect your bottom line.
Yeah.
If you're McDonald's, if you're Walmart, if you're,
I mean, in a way, we've learned that a business can be more accommodating to people and still work. Like today, some people might come for an interview and they'll ask for I forget what's the word, but like a position where they can work
Hybrid.
twice a week in the office and then work from home the rest of the week. Stuff like that, where I think it was educational for everybody on both sides. And
what are you trying to say, Dan?
His forehead is huge.
Yeah, dude.
It's like crazy,
It's
right?
a good hairline, but
And like,
that
if you
haircut
follow like
doesn't
where
help.
his head actually, like the head is massive.
A lot of real estate.
Uh-huh. That's his
awesome.
business.
I guess
I mean,
maybe we should listen. He's probably pretty smart with that big, right?
That five
Big
head.
brain.
That's so sick, dude.
That's just
That
very
ate it.
hollow.
But like, I fundamentally disagree with his theory that we must exploit workers for. It's like, dude, when workers
Like, if anything,
make more money and are better off and have health care and have access to shelter, affordable shelter and food, guess what? Society is more stable and going to have more longevity for everybody. When your philosophy is let's exploit every single worker to the max, it's only a matter of time before your head ends on a pike, brother. And it is coming someday. If you keep doing this, you will die.
it's so
Maybe
dumb.
not. He's gonna live
stupid
forever.
on so many levels.
You know what? Can I just say something else? All these rich people who are trying to live forever are the worst. They're the last people we want living forever.
True.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
Sorry, go ahead.
But it's just like, if anything, I think it became better for everybody. Like, employees know better. They know what they want and what works for them and what to ask for now. And employers can accommodate that, and then the employee can feel appreciated and feel like they care about the job and actually do a better job because they still have free time to do what they need. They can go do their personal errands. Like, it's a more, I don't know, it's a better approach for everybody, actually, what happened since COVID.
In almost all office jobs where people have to go to a specific place to work, there's no reason for them to be in that location 50% or even more of the time. Like, literally, it's just a quality of life increase for them that costs nothing. And apparently to people like this, the worker's suffering is part of what he expects to get from the salary he pays them. You know, he feeds off of it. What a piece of shit, dude. I hate this guy. How you even going to say that? You know, I know that I'm a capitalist. And so I've been trying to think, like, how do you square that with my other, like, socialist ideas? And I think if there isn't, there should be a thing, and it's a little bit of an oxymoron. It sounds silly, but I do think it can be and is a real thing. Benevolent capitalism. Does that sound silly?
It's called being a social democrat.
So, okay. So what I think is, like, if you like the idea of capitalism, then you need to also accept the inevitable downsides of capitalism. Like, if how you live is dependent on you working, right? Then you need to guarantee people jobs. It doesn't make sense. So, because without that, then you're basically saying, yeah, just as a consequence of this, some people are going to be homeless and destitute. And so that's unacceptable, right? I mean, that's psycho. I just accept that as a fact of life. And so, like, I think the government should have guaranteed jobs for people that want to work, you know, that pay enough for the minimum amount needed to have shelter and food. I think shelter should be guaranteed. I think food should be guaranteed because, again, we want the capitalist society and all the good things that benefits us. I do like the system of capitalism. I think it's good. But so we want all the good things, but at the same time, it does, if it's unchecked, it makes society, the distribution of wealth and, like, the stability of society goes totally off keel. And if you need a job to provide food and shelter, then again, that's the capitalism, right? So you have to guarantee those things. So I think work, food, and shelter should be guaranteed rights of people living in capitalism.
And education.
And
healthcare.
Right, and healthcare should be too, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those are even, like, the three most basic, but healthcare, you know, should be, and education should be too, you're right. And it makes sense to me because you want to exist in this world where it's all about money. It's all about market forces and all this shit. So you can't just regulate on the top. You have to regulate on the bottom too to control for the outcome. So
yeah, you are, everything you just described is almost social democrat to a T. I mean, this is what think like FDR, Democrat.
I love his second Bill of Rights.
Yeah, Democrats pre like 1970s is everything that you're describing.
Dude,
at least ideologically. They didn't always live up to all those things, but that was the kind of prevailing wisdom at the time.
The second Bill of Rights would have been the greatest thing that happened to this country, man. That's crazy. Ethan, describe one good thing about capitalism. First of all, I think it's like the natural inclination of some people. Like, I don't think it's even realistic to say, I want to live in like a perfect communistic society, because that just doesn't work. It's antithetical to human nature. But I do think there are good things of capitalism provides, which is, I do think there is a sense of innovation that happens when people are motivated by money and pushed to, do certain ideas and to invest in certain ideas that like the government isn't doing. I don't hate the idea of like people who can be successful. I think it's good that people can achieve success in the term monetary success. I mean, that's what that means, right? I do. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good. I think it's good. Right. It encourages efficient production, right? I mean, if there's a money incentive, like if everything was owned by the government, it would remove a lot of efficiency, perhaps, when people aren't motivated by money and stuff. But this is all silly. Again, it all sounds very vapid, and when you describe it, because capitalism is inherently, it seems like, based on hedonism, right? It doesn't come from like an altruistic place. So that's why the important part is to make sure that there is altruism and humanity that is kept in this, rat race, which is capitalism. That's it. The second Bill of Rights, FDR tried to pass, and he was close too, man. The right of every family to a decent home, the right to adequate medical care, and the opportunity to achieve and enjoy good health, the right to adequate protection from economic fears of old age, sickness, accident, and unemployment, the right to a good education. He was going to draft the second Bill of Rights, and it was close. It was really close to passing. He was on some king shit, wasn't he? Oh. There you go. I don't know what the fuck you want from me. I think that capitalism is a more realistic system of governance than like fucking communism is, Communism never works because people are inherently corrupt, and whoever's in charge is they're gonna be greedy, they're gonna be corrupt, they're gonna fuck everything up. It doesn't make sense to me that system could work where everybody just acts in good faith and does the right thing. So as long as there's no like mega losers in capitalism, if that's something we can regulate, then I do believe that it can be a benevolent thing. Yeah, capitalism breeds greed. Exactly. And, they say greed is good, and there is some truth to that in measure, right? It's, it's an inherent quality of man, and it can sometimes drive innovation, efficiency, all this kinds of stuff, You think that because you benefit from it, Ethan? Obviously. Yeah. Yes.
Well, his opinion is obviously going to be his opinion based on his experience.
But I feel like that's always been my opinion, frankly. So
I'm just saying the fact that it benefits you is obvious that it's going to affect your opinion. It is your opinion.
It just seems like this fucking like socialist, communist idea that people want is like just a pipe dream.
What is the idea that people want? I'm kind of curious because I see so many people in the chat saying no.
I don't know what y'all are tripping about. Like, what the fuck do you want?
What is the idea that
you
people
guys like
are
just
looking for?
I don't know.
To hear.
I actually don't know. Like, it's almost like weird virtue signaling to be like, I'm living in modern day America, but I want a full communist revolution. I don't know what the fuck. take on humanity, dude. You guys are.
Dan, do you know? Because you know everything.
Yeah, I don't really. Dude, you really want to get into this right now?
I don't mind.
I'm actually curious
right now. So
okay,
well,
that's
they
fine.
think that like
I'm actually curious because like it seems like majority of the chat is disagreeing, and so.
Well, we have a very left-leaning audience here on the H3 podcast, and I'm sure plenty of people will agree with you. I'm sure, but and obviously, the people
I think we are left-leaning too.
Anti-capitalists are going to speak up when you're giving an impassioned defense of it, but
I wouldn't say it's impassionate, but I do defend. I am a capitalist. What do you want? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I think
much,
it's. Yeah. But the thing is, like, they think that like workers should share in the.
Yeah, that's the fundamental difference is that
workers should get a % of your earnings, essentially, a percentage of their production. You know, I don't really, I don't agree with that. I don't think. I mean, in some cases it's true, but I think you do have an obligation to make sure your employees are well provided for. You know what I mean? Like, that's for sure. Suck it, chat. You're watching a capitalist pig. Deal with it. I don't know what the fuck. You guys are all like radical communists? There's that many radical communists?
They're not radical communists. Not everybody that's anti-capitalist is a communist.
It is kind of a radical take, that being like full anti-capitalist. I mean, you're essentially advocating to change the entire structure of all societies today on Earth. That's not radical?
Is there anywhere in the world that is doing that?
Not really. China's apparently communist, but it's not really.
It's not.
It's not. The people couldn't do whatever they wanted
North
during
Korea's
COVID.
communist. Well, not really.
Yeah, that's not really.
Yeah. Russia is, well, what? I don't know what Russia is. No, not really. I don't think there is.
No.
I don't think there really is. But how is being anti-capitalist not radical? Just in theory. Because
because the United States isn't the whole world, dude. Like,
what country is not?
I mean, I'm from Israel, but
Europe
it's pretty much the same thing.
Anti-capitalist, socialist political parties. Some of them in power at times. Some of them, it's definitely
they're capitalist countries, bro. Name one European country that isn't a capitalist country.
No, yeah, you're right. They're all capitalist countries.
Okay. You know, there's plenty to criticize for modern capitalism. Lots. It's not working in its current form. It's just totally broken in its current form. Like this late stage capitalism that, like this subreddit, like it's very poignant, I believe, with the late stage capitalism. You know, it's not working, for sure. But like, name one, you know, social democracies do great in Europe.
Yeah.
Sweden, for example.
Yeah, I'm because you're explaining Sweden pretty much, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like a capitalistic country with insanely high social benefits and security.
That's what I would like to see.
That's what I've lived in my whole life, and I'm curious what these people have to criticize. I mean, there's a lot of to criticize.
Ask Dan. You have a radical communist right next to you.
I actually don't know what the criticism is for Sweden's economy.
So that's exactly what I would love to see. Like, that's what I don't understand why everybody is like that.
And I'm sure there are. I'm not saying there isn't. I'm genuinely curious. I don't know.
I think that Scandinavia...
I think that a lot of young people see that capitalism, whether you think it has brought a lot of improvements to people's lives, is a system that is killing the planet. And especially in the last 30 to 40 years, most people, I think, at least I can really only speak, I'm just going to speak on the United States because that's my experience and what I've gone around, is like you said, you were just talking about that subreddit that's kind of all centered around it. I feel like people see the decline happening and they're fundamentally unhappy with the way that we have arranged our society. And to act like it was eternal and was always like this is kind of naive. I mean, capitalism, well, because capitalism is something that has only existed for about 200 years in like the form that we know it.
I didn't say it's always been like this.
Right, but I'm
talking about
just
the
saying
best
that, like,
form of
do you
government.
think that we have figured it out, that we've found the best system of organizing society?
I think that, you
Like,
know,
we're at the end of history.
I think part of it you have to tangle with is what's realistic. Like, what's a realistic
feel like-
way for
but what-
people to
but-
form?
I feel like if we're
How you
talking about
define
America,
what is realistic about a society that, I mean, we live in Los Angeles. There's thousands of homeless people starving on the street in our neighborhood.
But I'm not advocating for that.
Right, but I'm saying that people see the flaws in the system that we currently have, and so that
I see them too.
And there's a lot of, and this is the thing, you're saying like everybody's a radical communist. That's not necessarily the case. Being anti-capitalist doesn't equate that. It just is somebody that has landed on the side of the coin that they think that the system that we have, that capitalism, is not working. And there's a
I agree,
huge
though.
variety of people.
I agree with
ways that
everything you're
people
saying.
go from that. Well, and some people, I mean, most Republicans, and I would say even a lot of Democrats, would say what you just described, that social democrat kind of point of view.
They're not,
Would
though.
say that you are anti-capitalist with that point of view.
Then
Because
fine. Then I accept that.
Right.
I mean, say whatever the fuck you
and
want.
social democrats are very often seen as kind of like right on the fence between the what people call the left and the right.
So I'm
which
walking
in
the
most
middle path,
contexts-
like the Buddha himself.
Right, you're taking the middle path.
don't you feel though that here in America, like people can't even afford healthcare or education? So like, isn't a social democracy a first step that we should all try to get to?
Yeah, a lot of people do feel that way.
Before
I
like
mean, there's-
trying to get to like,
There's
I
an
want
enormous
shares in
amount of
every
nuance
business
and
I work at.
degrees here. Yeah.
So I think
100%.
that this.
I think that it's like for us, we're mostly talking about like what we see as realistic. Like what's the first step that we should at least try to get, like the bare minimum. I've been here 7 years. I'm still shocked about healthcare. Like it shocks me
Yeah.
every single time I deal with
It is shocking.
I paid $200 just to get a blood test. Like
Right.
it's insane. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like, yeah, we can talk like philosophical and we can talk all kinds of things, but I feel like what's actually going to happen? What's something that would be a first step to improve?
Well, I mean, there's a variety of opinions on that. And, you know, a lot of people would say that it does need to be an incremental thing and we need to work towards that. I mean, even people who describe themselves as communists say that because, again, like the USSR, for example, which is the most famous example of like a big country, a big superpower level country that people consider communist, right? Within their own framework, they never thought that they were communist. They thought they were taking steps towards communism, and in a variety of different ways. And so it's just about like that. That's an ideal. That's like an end goal that people who would self-describe as communists are. Now, what I would say a radical communist is somebody that wants a violent revolution to overthrow the government and take over and implement that system as closely as possible now, which is something that has happened in a variety of places to varying degrees of atrocities that fell out of that.
When you say you're an anti-capitalist, though, does that mean that you are critical of capitalism?
You
which
might
I
be
am.
too.
I mean, a
I
variety.
think,
Which I
you,
am.
I think
Yeah.
you say you're a capitalist, but it's a
But
lot
I am,
more
because
nuanced.
I'm not against the idea of capitalism. I think it's a good system with the correct
With a lot of
mechanisms in place.
corrections.
Because when you say you're anti-capitalist, it sounds like you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't believe in capitalism as a governing.
What it comes down to
concept.
me too is when you threw out that line from Glenn Ross about greed being good or whatever. I
don't think
accept
that's not from that. That's like a. Isn't that like a?
Yeah, no,
That's
it's
like
from
a
Glenn Ross.
I don't think that's the first time that was written.
Well,
Go ahead.
certainly
Anyway,
not
regardless.
it's certainly not the first time that people have felt that way. But that line that people often repeat is from that play. But anyways, yeah. I mean, all it comes down to me is that I don't think arranging society based on greed is good for the human spirit, and I think we see the consequences of that all around us.
So
a hyper-capitalistic society like the
greed needs to have bumpers. Okay, because the idea that we can live in a society without greed is a fairy tale. It just doesn't exist, and you can't approach a practical way of governing a huge body of people without looking at it realistically. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the USSR again, And I mean, it's a catastrophe because the people on the top who rise to the top are the ones that are pathological. They are greedy.
You don't think that happens in our society?
It is, but like, that's not the antithesis of everything that we stand for.
You think that capitalism does a better job at
you gotta
harnessing
you have to be aware. Say, listen, we live in a world where greed is inevitable, and so we need to harness that for the good that it does provide, and we need to put on bumpers for the bad things it does do. Because if we're like, yo, we need communism. And everybody needs, greed is bad and nobody, everyone is equal. The psychos are going to rise to the top and they're not going to fucking do what needs to be done. It's just not going to happen. And it's not realistic. People are going to they're not going to live that way. They're not going to live that way. The psychopaths, which there's going to be like 10, 20% are just full on psychopaths, are the ones that are going to become powerful. And they're going to take advantage of the system. They're going to become our oligarchs. They're going to become
So do you believe that
exploitative.
Do you think the United States with like its democracy, like our election system and democracy gives good safeguards, or at least gives some safeguards to preventing the sociopaths like you're talking about that rise up through like a totalitarian system?
That's not even a problem that you can control for. There's no way we're going to keep sociopaths from becoming billionaires.
Elections and being a democratic and term limits, or having our president change every 4 years.
Oh, are we talking about like rich people or elected officials?
I'm talking about elected officials. I'm talking about like, essentially what I'm asking is, do you think democracy is a good thing? And do you think democracy is what helps prevent
happening? But obviously our democracy isn't perfect either.
Right.
But
you think ultimately that being a democracy, living in a society that votes and has, the people agree on how who should represent us and who should lead us is something like that's a better system than like say China, right? Where they have a council of elites and somebody is elected from within, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what if we ran companies that way? Because companies aren't democracies; they're totalitarian.
So how do you run a company? So first of all, usually how are companies made? Usually,
are you saying like an entrepreneur starts a small business?
Like Apple. Let's just take Apple or Google.
Right.
It's made by a few enterprising people. So yada yada yada. It's made by 3-4 people. Apple, and over the years, it's growing. And so, how do you run Apple?
At what point does it become like subject to public opinion on who's going to run it and stuff like that? At what point does it get big enough to make those decisions?
And that's something that, that's why I asked the question about how do you feel about elected
because like an independent artist is also running a business and could be making a lot of money depending. There's a wide range. So how do we what do we define as?
Businesses aren't government.
No, they're not.
It's
they're
part of like the freedom we enjoy.
But I agree that like a company like Google is almost like government.
Yeah, we're
that's a whole different aspect of regulating these like monster businesses.
Right, and oftentimes, when there are critical parts of society that we deem like off limits to the private sector, we're like, let's say like the military. We don't, the government has a monopoly on that, right? Monopoly on like keeping an armed force and everything.
Yeah.
And at least in theory, I mean, obviously there's a whole different conversation, but in the United States, we have some say over what our military does as a result of that, right? Because we elect the people, we elect the commander in chief, we elect who's in charge, and we elect the person who is able to control the armed forces, right?
I mean, theoretically, the armed forces should be controlled by Congress, which hasn't really ever been taking place recently.
You're right. Yeah, according to the Constitution.
But you're saying, what are you saying? Just, you know what I mean?
I'm just saying that we can agree that there are certain things in society that we have decided that it's best if this is not left up to the entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Yes. Government should be in charge of stuff that has great social
Right. And so some people might think that the work that people are required to do to live in our society is also something essential and should be controlled more democratically in the same way that we control government institutions.
How?
Like what?
The same. I mean,
How
what
do
do
you
you
do
mean?
that?
How we do? There are public institutions, right?
But electricity isn't invented by one dude who's just like, I have this great idea, I'm going to make a company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The internet isn't owned by one dude. You know what I mean? Water isn't owned by one dude. Just by the definition of a utility.
It
So if
belongs to
Google,
the commons.
how are you going to go to a guy who founded Google and say, how do we make the government? We're taking it for the government. So what does that mean? What does that mean?
Okay, well, I mean, so I feel like there's two tracks here because there's how do we like you're now asking like how because we're in deep, right? There's a sunk cost here. We've built a society the way that we are, and ripping that all out is going to be a very disruptive process. So you're right. Like what, you know, if the government tomorrow were to nationalize all of Silicon Valley and just say, yeah, these are all publicly owned and take it all away, obviously people wouldn't go quietly with that, especially the people that own Google. They wouldn't like that, right? And so, I mean, that's something that has happened in history a lot when socialist revolutions happen, when the revolution happens and it's like, okay, we're going to nationalize all the oil industry. Like that all just belongs to the government now. You don't get to own that as a private citizen anymore. And so where is that line? What is essential to society?
But
what
oil,
is it?
again, oil, you're talking about a natural resource. I'm talking about like a big company.
Sure.
They invented their own product and sell it. I personally don't think there's anything wrong with the rules that govern that come from, the people, from the concepts of guardrails, high level, that they have to treat their employees with a certain level of, they have to compensate them to a certain level
coming
to
back
provide
to that social democrat.
So like,
and listen, social.
so
like,
I don't
got a
think
problem with what you're describing. Really, like I agree. I mean, and
I don't think putting the government in charge is going to improve anything. If you were talking about like massive businesses like Google, again, just to use an Apple, you're talking about natural resources that benefit all people that need then that's it. Then but. Listen, I'm open to having a debate about these things. I'm not saying one way or the other.
Conversation about it. I just think that I think it comes down to again where that line is drawn, and it's like internet stuff, for example. You're right. I mean, especially in the early days when it's just little companies figuring it out. But then at a certain point, when does the internet become a human right? When does living in society, does the internet become a requirement? And does it become fucked up to deny people that because they can't afford it?
Sure.
No, I agree with that stuff.
And so it starts to get kind of gray, right?
Well, I'm looking at this nuance. I'm not saying we need to have conversations about stuff as it happens, and we need to have it from like a benevolent point of view and a realistic point of view. I'm not saying, I'm open to having a conversation about socializing anything, right? But that's what it should be. It should be a conversation and about like the social good that something can have. And if it needs to be, is it being, is this business being owned privately to a great detriment to the majority of people? Are people not having access to it who need it? And this is a conversation to have on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and so you're an incrementalist, and you think.
And so far, like we're talking about the really big companies, which we all agree on that, like Google, Facebook, all the scary stuff. I agree, 100%. But like, what about the in between? What about everything else, like under that?
But I'm not. But again, I'm talking about like regulations. I'm talking about like antitrust shit. I'm not talking about full government takeovers of the company.
Okay, right. But it doesn't, the full government takeover of the company is the extreme end of that. But like the middle ground of what I'm talking about is unions. That's what unions are, right?
pro-union. I think unions are great. And I think workers should have power.
So, right. And so all a union really is in a sense, it's somewhat democratizing a workplace because now the union gets a say in how the business is conducted. Hey, the workers, we're all getting together and we're saying, unless you improve this, unless you do this, we're not showing up, and we're going to prevent
This is a
anybody.
negotiation. This is a conversation. You know what I mean? It's not
Right,
like
well,
it's not a government interjecting and telling a business what they can and can't do.
Well, in a sense, it is, because government gives protections to unions. We at one point decided that these are important, and we created a structure where we.
I'm in favor of that.
Right, because
I am
prior to
too.
that, the owners of the factory or whatever, when the workers tried to do something like that, they literally fucking shoot them.
Right. So yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not okay.
That
I'm
happened.
Okay, but I'm in favor of unions.
Okay, well.
And by
I'm
the
glad
way,
to
if
hear
you
that,
look
but-
at again, what you look at Scandinavia, which I think is like as close to a model
they have
society,
very
have
very high
tons of
union
unions,
participation rate, right? Yeah,
right?
like extremely high.
And probably tons of laws protecting unions. And so again, I'm looking at social democracy like in Scandinavia and saying this is a model society, and it's as close as we're going to get as an equitable
I'm trying
society,
to,
realistically, too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what is the point we don't agree on.
Well, I just think.
Well,
I don't think,
here's what we're
I don't think we're
disagreeing
that
on.
far apart from each other.
You saying anti-capitalism. Are you opposed to the idea of capitalism? Because I agree that capitalism in its current form is unsustainable.
I would say that I am opposed to it, but I would say I am far less radical than many that think that we should tear it down immediately. I think that the ripple effect of that would inevitably be extremely violent and disruptive to society. And I'm more of the incrementalist. Now, I would say I am for the left of you because I think that the end goal should be a little bit further in that direction than what you're saying. But
in what way?
Which is
we're
what I
talking,
just
we're
wanna
talking in
understand.
degrees.
In what
here.
way? Yeah.
Like what?
In what way are you? First of all, saying like capitalism shouldn't exist is like, I feel a fairy tale. It's just not a realistic expectation for humans to. I just
Or like
don't.
for me, it's like define what would that look like. I just want to like get to an understanding where we
how about
understand
in
each
like really
other.
simple terms, I think that an incrementally pushed left society that's moving away from capitalism a little bit would likely have companies use profit sharing models with their employees on a much bigger basis. And you see some companies doing that, but if you study it over time, what has happened is the opposite of that, is that the profits of companies are getting concentrated more and more up.
Well, we're just talking about regulating and stuff again.
Right. So I would say that one thing that you could do is you could regulate it that you, as an owner and a CEO of a company, the profits that the company is generating, you're obligated to share that with the people that work for you on a much bigger scale.
It's just a matter of
Rather than
how
right
fairly.
now, which the goal always is to pay your workers as little as possible. That is, and that's not like a secret.
And that's
or
human
nefarious.
nature, bro. That's why we need to adjust where that bar is. We need to agree that bar, because listen, it's only
and
natural.
Again, that's why I'm saying
for
we're not that far away.
Big,
We're talking in degrees of how far you move the bar.
I
I
just-
probably move it further than you, but I'm not. I don't own a company like.
but yeah, I mean, listen, if you're just debating on like how much to compensate your employees fairly, that's like,
And we're talking about first steps
to
here
be like,
too.
yo,
mean,
I think every company should give X amount of profits to employees. It's also overly complicated because in the sense it's like, what if you don't have a profitable year? Then the employees make less? Also fudge the numbers. How many
happens.
businesses fudge their numbers?
But what you just described happens all the time.
Okay,
People
but
get
I'm
fired,
not talking
they get
about
laid
what
off,
happens.
or they get wage cuts.
What happens is not good. What is happening is not good. We both agree.
Yeah, no. I think, obviously we both agree on that. Yeah, 100%. You said what's happening
What's
now?
happening now is not good.
Yeah.
Okay. I think having a
like-
bare minimum bar of what we provide, basic human rights to people, like FDR was carving out, is a better system, personally, and a simpler system, and a more realistic system.
Okay.
I feel like the conversations of like how far to go are like, I'd be willing to have them, but I feel like first I just want to see like normal shit happening. You know what I mean? Like,
That's the thing is like, that's why, again,
'Cause that's almost like
I have like my
Fantasyland.
personal beliefs of like idealism of like how I would love to see the world work with like rainbows and everything, and then I have the other side of like, okay, we live in the real world, what can happen or whatever, and so those are different conversations, and so yeah, I mean, for now I would, public health care would be great, you know, like that's the thing is, in my opinion, we're in such a bad spot that like, you know, I'll take just getting Medicare for all. Like that would be a huge W, sure. And that's in my opinion not far enough, but I'll take it. I'm not going to say no to that, right?
People think that I don't know. Listen, people think it's being pessimist to say it's human nature to be greedy. Show me one time in a big organized society where that wasn't the inevitability of like deep-seated societal destroying corruption.
But do you want to live in a society that encouraged that? Or
do I want to live in a perfect utopia? Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'm not saying perfect utopia. I'm saying quite a few people that run our country, and I'm not saying you feel this way because this isn't your opinion, but this is the prevailing attitude in this country, is that it's a good thing to arrange the way we run society around. Let's embrace that greed. Let's use it for good, like you said, rather than, hey, this is a fundamental part of human nature. We should check it.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Well,
right?
it's to me not that big of a difference. It's the same thing.
I think there's a fundamental difference there.
I'm not saying like there are people who are going to be extremely innovative and effective that are going to be motivated by wanting to be really rich and really powerful.
Yeah, I mean,
Elon Musk is a good example. The guy's a fucking psycho piece of shit. I hate him on a level, but like what he's achieved with Tesla is undeniable in terms of moving EV to mainstream. It just is undeniable, right? And I don't even want to give him the credit because I fucking hate him. I think he sucks. But like saying like making this, distinction between promoting greed or putting guardrails to prevent from greed, it's just, there's not a significant difference there, in my opinion. Unless you can explain. By the way, people were saying this is worse than dead air. The show's over, right? I mean, it's been over. Just leave if you don't like it.
What time is it?
It's past 5.
It's after 5.
This is just,
we got caught up.
We gotta go.
You gave yourself no green flag for not wanting to talk about politics, and then you just launched into an hour-long diatribe about socialism versus capitalism. So, liar.
I think it's interesting.
I think social democracy is the way to go. It's just realistic, man. And I'm pro-union, and I think people should be fairly compensated. I think people are entitled to own a home. I think people are entitled to go to college. I think people are entitled to, have healthy meals. And I also think that I don't think that we should regulate how rich people can be if they're existing in that sandbox. Like I'm not going to come out here and say billionaires shouldn't exist, because if you can become a billionaire in this sandbox where you're paying your fair share to provide for people in this way, making sure you live in a society where people get houses, where people get food, where people get education. If you can do all that and still be a billionaire, then there's no problem with that, in my opinion. There's just...
Well,
you know what I mean?
We've had this discussion before, but I think it just comes down to whether or not you believe you can get to that level without doing horrible shit.
Doing horrible shit? You mean like, can you...
Is that even an attainable thing without being an immoral person?
Billionaire has become a huge range. Look at people on the top. They're worth 200, 300 billion.
Yeah, Elon Musk billionaire is
sick.
Like a lot more than a 1 billionaire.
Can you become that rich without doing horrible things? Definitely not. Can you get $1 billion without doing horrible things? Probably.
Well, billionaire shouldn't exist as a snappy slogan. Maybe you can quibble about where the line of acceptability is, but I think you understand in principle that at a certain point, that level of wealth, concentrated wealth,
in my model society, I don't think people could become that rich.
What about like Taylor Swift worth $740 million?
She's just an entertainer. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. When you say billionaires shouldn't exist, I think it's about time we start making a distinction between like 100 billionaires and like, you know, single digit billionaires, because there is a big difference. You know what I mean?
mean,
There is.
you don't
Like
think
a
it's
lot
a
of
little silly to
musicians.
quibble over that? Because again,
Not
it's,
really.
it's a political slogan at the end of the day, and I feel like it gets the
Well,
point
it's,
across
I
pretty
think that
easily,
I
right?
think that it's not self-serving, because I think plenty of people see that and they think what I'm seeing and they think that's silly. Why shouldn't people be able to be successful? Because there are people who are way too fucking rich and evil, you know, clearly, who got that rich. It's, you know, I think there's a difference between, like, let's say Elon Musk is 300. How wealthy is Elon? He's like 250 billion or something.
Something like that.
So he's 250 times richer than a 1 billionaire. So let's say you have 10.
Obviously, he's on the most extreme.
Let's say you have $10,000 in the bank.
Mhm.
So what's that times 250? You know what I mean? Like the difference is really quite huge. 250 times, you know.
2.5 million, right?
So that's a big difference, right? Between 10,000.
I'm not. Yeah, listen.
That's the difference between having $10,000 and 2.5 million.
Yeah, but at a
having $1 billion is like you can do anything you want. Having $200 billion is like you can influence elections and change, and you can like fundamentally control the outcome of current events.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, again, it sounds like I pretty much agree with you in principle. It's just we disagree about where the line is. I think if you're at $1 billion, you're already well over the line. To you, maybe it's more than that, but
if it's a musician that got there, I don't think they did anything bad. You know, you're saying you had to have done
there's
bad
entertainers
stuff
that are
to get
billionaires.
to $1 billion.
Who's a billionaire?
Taylor Swift is almost a billion.
Taylor Swift is almost there, if not already there, because I'm just looking at Google. You know, I don't know how accurate
But again,
it is.
Listen, rock stars are cool and they can be as rich as they want.
Let's see, Beyonce. I don't know.
Jay-Z.
Rihanna.
Well, I mean, Jay-Z doesn't.
Rihanna is accordingly 1.4 billion.
But because she makes a lot of money from business and stuff.
Okay, but I don't think she necessarily does bad stuff to get there. I don't see that.
Well, she.
I don't know her as a person. But
That's the thing is once it gets to a certain point, there's something along the line that is probably involving some like child slavery or something. You know what I mean? Even without their knowledge, but it's like the system lends itself to that. Again, because we're so focused on incentivizing finding the least common or the lowest common denominator in everything, by which I mean seeking to maximize profits, seeking to minimize expenses however you can. And there's a lot of people that are immoral and they don't give a fuck about if, you know, this is coming from child slavery in some West African country or whatever.
Someone said, Ethan, $1 billion would change my life.
The system,
Sorry, I don't have that much money.
it doesn't frown on that, really. In
sure.
a lot of ways,
I think that's
encourages
another
it.
philosophical conversation about like how is our society, whether it be pure socialism or democracy, how is it using and affecting, you know, other countries? You know, that's a I think perhaps a different conversation that you can have, and you can have the same conversation regardless. But you know, I see a world where you can become a billionaire ethically. It's not impossible. There's 300 million people living in America, and there's a ton of money here. If you invent a really fucking awesome thing, you can become a billionaire without doing a single thing wrong.
Maybe. I feel like that's the middle path. That's the real Buddha path. Become a billionaire, but harm no other in the process.
I think it's possible. I really do. I don't know what to say.
That's the middle way.
But I'm not saying you go out there and be a billionaire. I'm just saying I don't think we need this self-imposed, like, here's the line, rich and no richer.
I just don't think you should let a slogan like that bother you so much. It
I
sounds
think-
like, it
but
sounds
I don't
like you
think-
agree with the spirit of the slogan.
I
You
don't
just-
think the slogan serves itself well because, like I said, people are not seeing it like we're just talking about like 100 billionaires. People see that and they say,
no, the poor single billionaires.
well, how are you? But like,
Come on.
They don't like the idea of you coming and taking people's money. It doesn't make sense. Like, how are you going to do that?
I mean, isn't that what taxation is? That's all they're talking.
Well, they go
taking
99%
money.
tax over every dollar over $1 billion. That's silly.
I mean, that's what FDR wanted.
Not 99.
There was, I think, the top tax bracket that FDR wanted was, maybe it wasn't 99, but it was like 95 or something.
Let's see.
Top tax bracket. Let's see. 75% 75 is what they got. I believe 90%.
Well, I think 90% is too high, but 75 makes
But
more sense to me.
but we're talking like in modern dollars, that was probably 90% of every dollar over like 5-10 million that you made that year.
Right. It's a tax bracket.
Yeah, it's a progressive tax.
And I like the tax bracket. I think 75% is probably more realistic. You know.
Well, that's what it was.
And
now we're at what, like,
and by the
18?
way, I don't think anyone gets taxed that high in the whole world. What's one country that charges the richest people over 75%? It doesn't exist. I don't think it does.
I don't know off the top of my head. I know that. I mean, maybe.
But
you
I'm
know,
cool
like,
with that.
What's the top tax bracket in Sweden? In those Nordic countries, it's pretty high.
Probably around 55.
It's
55?
not, it's
He's
not
saying like
much more than
55.
what I pay here. I pay about 55%.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you
Also
go.
dividends, like you can just pay yourself dividend, 20%.
Well, right, and that's the reality here too. Is that everybody that's rich knows how to get around that and just
But I
doesn't
feel
pay.
like it's also important a note to like defend the democracy from capitalism, because here like lobbying is crazy. I feel like that's what's ruining America.
And that's my
personally.
point. Is like I feel I didn't make this point very well. I was trying to make the point earlier, but this is why I was asking about what you think about democracy in general. Is that capitalism is it's anti-democratic and in more than one sense. And what Love's talking about is like how the money can corrupt our democracy and everything is a part of that. But just in general, like we run, the expectation is that companies are run from the top down in a very hierarchical way, and that there isn't much say from the bottom up. You know what I mean? It's the inverse of how we run our government. And so, defending against the worst tendencies of that, I think, is important.
That's what I advocate for.
I'm always so confused because you want to replace the system, and I guess me and Ethan want to. Sweden,
Wait, hold on. I buttoned that.
What was
Okay.
it?
Oh, what happened? I didn't even hear what
I
you
said
don't
this,
even-
and I felt like maybe it came off wrong. I said, maybe that is his name.
Oh, whatever.
What was it? What's the actual name?
I don't even know what you're going
I
for.
have
with
no
I
idea.
guess I vaguely know it. You were trying to call me a
Communist. Yeah.
Yeah, but
What was his name?
Are you talking about Mao?
Yeah.
Oh my god, this
Right.
screen,
Mao.
this button
But what's
screen
his
is
full name?
epic.
Mao Zedong.
So you're
Yeah.
they have
Mao
no clue what we're
Dan
talking
Zong?
about.
I don't know.
So
trying to think of it.
I guess I said me and Ethan want to fix the system, like capitalism, like
Yeah.
put band-aids over where it kind of leaks. And you
No,
wanna
not
replace-
Band-Aids, because that sounds bad.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Right,
But
like,
I don't wanna
We want
replace it completely.
scaffoldings. We
I
want-
don't-
Yeah, I mean,
I don't get why.
I don't. You don't get why? Because
I don't get why you don't want to
because
fix
I-
the system
because-
instead of replacing it.
Well, we're talking about. I mean, I am talking about fixing the system
But-
as well, but
yeah. Sure.
my way of fixing it would be modifying it significantly more than what
Sure.
you're saying. Band-aiding it. Not to use that term, but
Yeah.
So how do you prevent people from being billionaires? Just by doing a 99% tax?
I mean,
on
that's
the-
a real easy way, right? I mean, FDR thought it was. And yeah, I mean...
Well, okay, you want to talk about democracy. I mean, FDR's he's not a tyrant either. You know what I mean? He got 75% ultimately, like you said, and I think I would do 90. I think it's fair anywhere between 75 and 90 for the utmost,
Yeah.
99% to me just seems silly to me to tax someone 99%, even if they are a billionaire.
Well, when he said, when he was going for the 90 and got 75, that probably wasn't negotiating tactic. You know what I mean?
Okay, so 75. I mean, what the fuck? That's not enough. You know what I mean? A
That
hell of a
probably
lot
is
more than they
enough.
pay
That
All
now.
I'm
probably will
saying
be
is
enough
let's
to-
start there. Let's start somewhere.
Okay,
You know?
let's jack it up to 75. Let's go.
People
fucking go.
I think people are jaded on capitalism, understandably.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
we live
It's
in
burned us
capitalism, so
all.
obviously it's easy to see its flaws because we exist in it now.
And I understand from my perspective, thanks to Gary Vee's advice,
Different
that I am
perspectives.
like a winner in capitalism, right? You might say.
W.
Thank you.
Different perspectives.
And so, listen, I've been on the losing end of capitalism too, and more it's screwing us over. But what I'm saying is we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, people.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to feel, charitable to capitalism as a concept when almost everyone's being burned by it. But you look again at Scandinavia. I think that's as close as a model society as we've achieved in human history.
I want Jimmy Lee to start paying his employees. That's all I care about.
Me too, bro.
We can all agree on that one.
Yeah, we all agree on
And
that.
I'll tell you, I'll take it even further. I think it should be illegal to have unpaid employees.
Yeah.
Period. You know what I mean?
I think it is.
Not well, no, internships, like the free
I
labor
guess
shit.
that's true. I mean, yeah. It does seem a little gray, though, doesn't it?
I'm surprised by how many people think that, like, by the way, I say radical communism because, again, you're talking about undoing the vast.
Again, there's like so many like ways to approach it. I mean,
every country,
what I
even
would
the
call-
communist ones, are operating via capitalism.
right. Well, there's a lot of nuance to that too. I mean,
We
the
can't
whole
just
thing with
dig it out, man.
What's that?
We should just dig it out and replace it. Anti-capitalism. I don't know. I'm
Well, listen, a lot of people agree with you that
not in this chat.
agree with reform rather than revolution. That's
it's
a
pretty-
a long-standing debate on
Yeah.
the left of what the superior strategy is.
Yeah. But I think capitalism gets a bad rep just because that, up until now, it hasn't been checked. And we're at this point now where we call it late stage capitalism, where it really is on life support. And it's just not working. It's not a good system. Unchecked capitalism is evil. It's not working well. But I do think that a hybrid system of socialism, capitalism is a really good system that can be humanistic, benevolent, and serve also the productivity and innovation that some people would say capitalism breeds.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, we really got.
But by the way, I want to say
We
this.
gotta go.
Some of you guys in chat are so annoying. Like, I'm not.
Oh, don't let them.
I'm not advocating. Like, y'all act like I'm saying like I think that there should be no minimum wage and people should be fucking like if they can't afford come on, stop it.
Well,
People act like I'm stomping on workers' faces because I don't rev share.
Our audience has a wide range of views, and obviously leans pretty far left, just because all the personalities on this show do.
Listen, every time a measure comes to raise taxes in LA or otherwise, I always vote yes. I said I'm going to pay 75%. Is that not enough for you guys? 75%? What other rich person is saying that? Find one.
Well, listen, I am not a radical communist, so I can't make that argument for them. I'm sure they will in the comment section and on the Reddit over the next few days. But, but yeah, I mean,
I think the greed is good thing threw people off too. I think that people being greedy is an inherent and inevitable trait of the human spirit. I'm not saying of everybody. I'm not saying everybody's greedy. I'm saying if you take 1,000 people, a certain percent of them are going to be greedy and motivated by power and wealth and status. Okay? And a lot of times there's going to be an oversight of these people's being sociopaths and being super capable, super smart. Mm-hmm. And we can't harness this for what good it can do, which is like innovation, productivity, efficiency, and stuff like that, while also regulating it to make sure it doesn't also ruin society and that it serves people well in general. And I think that's just realistic. It doesn't matter if you're in a society, doesn't matter if you're living in pure socialism, doesn't matter if you're living in, any form of governance. There's going to be a percent of people that are highly capable, intelligent sociopaths obsessed with money and status and power. Mm-hmm. And so, and there's going to be good people that are successful too. That's not what I'm saying. But these are the people that really cause the problem. And so
let's not encourage them.
That's just how you do not encourage. That's human nature, bro. Like, I just don't believe that there's ever
You
going to be...
just don't think that there's anything that you can do about people being greedy and fucking people over? There's just nothing you can do
People are
about that?
born with fucking, that's like saying, I don't want anyone to be
I'm
born a
not saying-
sociopath.
of
Let's
course
end
not.
sociopathy.
I'm not saying
You're not gonna end sociopathy.
Yeah, of course not. I'm not saying that. Of course, I agree with what you're saying. That there's people are greedy. Just should that behavior be rewarded?
I don't even know
or
what that
not?
means. What do you mean rewarded? Maybe, and now it is, but I'm saying...
Again, nobody... Ian's telling you to shut up.
I have to pee. I'm sorry. I have
We
to
have
jump in.
to go.
Hold on.
Oh.
What do you mean? What do you... But I don't even know what that means. It's encouraged. I mean, it is what it is.
You said it yourself. You said greed is good.
I just said that was misconstrued.
But here's
bro.
the thing. But okay, fine.
I'm saying it's inevitable.
Right.
And
You
so
don't
let's
believe
harness
that?
it for the good it can do.
You don't believe that. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that run the world do.
Okay, well, that's inevitable.
I don't think that that's inevitable. That's where we differ.
Well, regardless,
we should do
I don't
something
think
about
it should matter what people think, because ultimately, in the way that the framework that things are built, it's not going to matter what they think about greed.
I agree.
There's going to be,
and that's why it's not a great framework, in my opinion.
Why?
Because of what you just said.
It's a framework that doesn't matter what you think about greed.
Right.
And it controls the worst outcome for what they can do. How is that bad?
It controls the worst outcome?
Yeah. In
I'm
my
not sure I follow
social
your
democratic utopia.
Oh, you're saying, okay, yeah. I'm talking about the state of the world now. You're talking about, like you said, your vision of the future. So,
Ethan said, you guys really think there's people born that aren't going to be like sociopathically greedy? That seems silly to me, but what do I know? You want to live in a society where sociopaths aren't born anymore. Let's do that. That sounds like a great idea to me. Let's eradicate sociopathy.
Wait, go back, AB. Where's that coming from?
Let's erase.
That was the guy originally.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm trying to learn his controls.
That's all, folks. Guys, you're right. You guys, here's my platform.
You're getting stun locked.
Let's eradicate sociopathy and personality disorders. We're not gonna encourage that. No more of that, you guys. Everyone's gonna be born a perfect, healthy human with perfect parents, perfect family. There'll never be any damaged people. It's all good all the time. Let's not even worry about it. Everyone's a saint. Everyone's great. Everyone has humanity's best interest at heart. Definitely not their own. Let's go, guys. It's perfect utopia time. Everybody's born.
I just want to live in
perfect.
Star Trek, bro. That's all I'm saying. I just want to live in fucking Star Trek.
Everybody.
I
want to
live there too.
Well,
I love
got
Star
bad
Trek.
news, Hila.
When does Star Trek place take in like?
I love
10,000
Star
of years?
Trek. But we also need to be able
Get in a
to.
time machine.
Yeah, we need to be able to travel.
Oh wait,
in,
those
like,
don't exist either.
Fuck.
We need turbo speed.
Okay, congratulations. We just secured all personality disorders. Every child is born with puppies and toys and futons.
Nobody's making this point.
Futons.
Ay.
And we all have food. Nobody will be hungry because we have food particle generators that can make any meal you want.
Replicators, hell yeah.
Thanks, guys. But yeah, I mean, the show's been over, so I'm just humoring our conversation.
Dan,
but thank you.
You wouldn't
The real
have had
heads are here.
Baldur's Gate in a communism.
That's
all I
that's
gotta
kind
say.
of fair.
That's all I gotta
Are you
say.
saying you want to socialize Baldur's Gate?
You wouldn't be able to
Larian
have,
Studios.
You wouldn't be
Aren't
able
they?
to.
Wait a minute. Aren't they? Where are they from? Larian Studios.
I don't know if this is gonna make things worse or help, but just say that Ethan, I think you're a wonderful boss, very generous. I've had many bosses.
You know what?
including my
I will
own
say that too.
uncle,
Since we're
and
on the
No.
topic.
Well, thank you for saying that, AB. Unfortunately, my EP wants to overthrow me and put my head on fire.
I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth.
Just say thank
fuck
you,
me.
Ethan. Take a compliment.
Oh, I did. I said thank you, AB, and then I said,
And
"Damn,
Dan
watch
said
it."
it too. But Dan said it too.
No, I know. We have a wonderful relationship.
Eli, I think
know.
you're a great boss too.
Thank
we
you.
have a wonderful relationship here with everybody in here. I'm I'm addressing people who say that humans aren't born greedy. Some.
I'm going to
think.
turn off the chat so you don't get.
Yeah,
we can go.
They're all
turn it
banned.
off.
It's
Anyone,
5:30, Ethan.
Turn it off. We're
and by
never
the way,
gonna leave.
Anyone disagreeing with chat is now permanently banned.